Rover YouTube page. Today we're going to be working on a few parts video for you guys that are restoring your Defenders and you come across the fact that your bulkhead is in really bad condition, but you don't want to have to replace it, or you can't afford to replace it, but something needs done. So with this few part series, we're going to be showing you how to fix your bulkhead rather than buy one, because anything is fixable if you have the right tools and if you have the time. Even if you don't have the right tools, we'll show you what you need to go get so you can get the job done. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be taking everything off of the front end of the truck. That's the fenders, the hood, you know, everything up here except for the motor, because we're not to that part yet. Then we're going to work on taking the doors off. Now, I wanted to film the removal of the dashboard, but it took really long and I didn't know my GoPro had a time-lapse option. So I really didn't want to record, 4 to 5 hours of taking this thing out and labeling all the wiring and all that to edit it down to like a, minute and a half segment. So this is out. It's pretty self-explanatory for anybody who wanted to see it. You just find the screws, take them out. Make sure that when you unplug everything from your gauge clusters to your switches to your key switch and everything, make sure you label, even if you're not going to use your factory wiring harness again, make sure to label what unplugs from what switch, and label the switches as well. That way, when you go back to wiring it yourself, or you go into putting a new harness in, you'll have a reference of what goes where. So, back to the front end. We're just gonna make everything up here disappear. That way we can access the bulkhead much easier, because as you can see, a lot of people have issues where they see that it's rusty down these pillars and they're like, oh man, it needs replaced. Or they're gonna see sections like this. Now, your average person is gonna see this, and all this rust up in here and say, yeah, we can't fix that. We need to replace it. But that's what we're here to show you. We're gonna show you that you can fix all of this. You can buy these A-pillars, and you can buy the outside skin for the vent panels. Everything back in here you're gonna have to make. And everything back in here you're gonna have to make as well. But you can do it with if you buy your mediocre tools, you can do it with a couple $100 in tools. But that's better than spending $3,000 and $4,000 on a bulkhead. You can spend a couple $100 on some tools, and you can spend $150 on some metal, and probably $200 on the buyable parts, and you'll be good to go. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the time lapse of taking everything up here apart and removing the face of this beautiful Defender 90. Well, soon to be beautiful Defender 90. So first we're gonna start by taking the hood off. This involves these hinges back here, as well as the arm that's underneath the hood that holds it up, and we're gonna take out this center grille. Once we get that done, we'll walk you guys around where everything is in these fender wings, because this is my first time doing it too. So as I'm learning, you're learning. So yeah, we'll get this done and then we'll get right on these. So for the hood, if the tops of your screws are stripped out or are rusted up and you can't get this to stay in it and it just keeps drilling it out by itself. And come under here, we're gonna try this. They've got 3 nuts on each inside edge of the hinge. So we'll try and take those out and see how that goes. It should work, just hopefully the hood just doesn't drop, because that would be bad. So we got the grill out, we got the little grill shroud out. The one that was in this was technically for a Puma Defender with the air conditioning, but in my opinion it looks better, so I just put it in this one. It will have air conditioning when it all goes back together, so it'll be useful. But we got that off, and we got the hood off. So you guys might have wondered what I was doing when I grabbed this handy dandy Bosch drill. With these hood hinges, the heads of all the bolts were, let's let it focus, were really rusty. That one wasn't too bad, but well, the one that I drilled out was. So the inside one on both sides was just completely rusted out, and it broke the bolt loose inside of this before I could get the nut off the back. So it was just spinning, and I couldn't get a screwdriver to stay in there because it was just stripping the head out. So what I did is I grabbed my drill, and I sat on the hood and just drilled straight down on the top of that bolt head. And then what I did is I took this little thingy-bobber up here, and took a hammer and beat right down in the center of it once the top of the screw got thin, and I knocked it right through. It might still be there. Yep, sure is. So here it is. So this is what it did. Is I drilled the top. Let's let it focus. Halo. There we go. So what I did is I drilled the top. As you can see how twisted up it is. It drilled it, and then I just tapped with that pin right in the center of it, and it knocked it out at the bottom. I had put some tri-flow on it. Didn't help any, but they're out now. So now the next part is getting these wings off. We're going to start by getting the trim pieces off and the little wheel eyebrows off and their lights. These are riveted in. We're just going to leave those in there for now. We're going to get them powder coated black when they go back on, but we're going to start getting all this stuff off the inside, and then we're going to take these wings off, and then that will allow us to access the front side of the bulkhead on these corners. Like I said, these are getting replaced, but it's always nice to know how far over into it the rust goes. So yeah, let's get to that, and then we'll be back in a second. So we got all the bolts out. So there was one more bolt hiding right back in there that I had to take out. We got out everything that went between these two panels, between the inner wing and the outer wing. What I ended up having to use was just a really small 1/2 inch wrench, and then just a 1/2 inch socket on a ratchet. And then we had, you'll have a bolt right up there at the top, right up there. You'll loosen this one up, you'll loosen that one up, and then you'll loosen that bottom one up. And as you can see, right where the tip of the light is, there's a groove there that the fender will just slide up, and then you'll have one right there. And then you'll have to take, let's let it focus, these two screws out here. This one came out with a little bit of elbow grease, and that one I ended up having to take the grinder and just cut the head off of it because it was too rusted, and it kind of rusted solid to the fender liner. But yeah, so this is what it looks like without the fender on it. As you can see, you know, we can now see some more rust. But we are going to go ahead and get this inner wing out. It should just be a few screws. Of course, it's those two screws there. And I think there's a few more in here. Yeah, there's a little nut back there. And actually, I think that's it for the inside of this. So we'll go ahead and take that off and see what it looks like afterward. So we got the inner wing out, or the fender liner, or whatever you want to consider it. One thing is, I was telling you guys about the two bolts that was right here, the two screws that mounted it to a bracket. Well, as I was unscrewing and grinding one of them off, the bracket broke off of the footwell. So that was two bolts I ended up not having to get off. It's definitely rusty there, and it's really rusty under there. But I'm really surprised at how little rust is on the A-pillar. Most of the time, like on the other side, it's rotted out on this bottom area, or it looks to be. But here, I mean, it looks really good. I'm gonna go ahead and replace it anyway, because I'd say it's pretty bad up there. And I've already bought it, so I'll do that. And it came with this piece that goes under here as well, which looks a little pitted right there, and maybe a little bit more further back in there. But overall, it's what I was expecting. You know, it's not any more than I was expecting. And really, if I wouldn't, well, when I bought this vehicle, a replacement set of these came with it. But as I was looking at it, I mean, if you've got the time and you've got a metal brake, it wouldn't be hard at all to make these instead of buying them. Because I know, you know, a good set's about $120 each. Granted, the brake to make them is about $250. You can make multiple sets and sell them to all your Defender buddies and have a little side business. But yeah, I mean, everything came off pretty easy. I was actually kind of really impressed. The only thing that I was not impressed with was where this panel meets that panel, the little bolts up in there. But other than that, I mean, it was really smooth. And another thing that I've read and heard is these little clips here, if they're anything like the ones that are in the doors, they've got a little bolt on the back side. Never mind, no they don't. This is a different style. So these are also behind these hinges here, except they've got a nut on the back side that's threaded to this bolt. That's in one of these clips, held on by a few little paper thin tabs about as thin as that. And I've just heard that once these get a little bit of rust on them, you go to try to get them out and it's just gonna break those tabs. So you end up having to drill them out. And I feel like that's what we're gonna end up having to do. Definitely on the top, as rusty as it is up here. The bottom, I'm not 100% sure. This one's been replaced before. But you know, they might not be too bad. I don't know how rusty it is inside that hole. It looks like you got a little bit back in there. Yeah, there's a little bit down in there. Those might be hard to get out as well, but if all else fails, drill it out and be happy, because you're going to replace them anyway. These hinges are worn out, so we end up replacing them. But I guess we're going to go ahead and get the radiator out, or see what we can do to get the radiator out, or get the door off first. I'm not really sure, but you'll see whatever I do next. So we got the door off. One of them came out good. That was the top one. And these are those little clips that I was talking about just a minute ago that they'll rust up. And here's an example. See? I mean, it's just, it rusted completely gone. It's supposed to be a square with a little nut inside of it, and it's just gone. So it was just sitting there spinning. But yeah, that top one came out great. I had to drill in with two sizes on this one, drilled one large bit and then took a smaller bit right down in the center. Did the same with these two down here and took a punch and hammered right down in the center, a reasonably big round punch, and it knocked the head right apart from the bolt. Then I just had to take this little pin out, and away came the door. So yeah, we'll get this little running board taken off. Like I said a few minutes ago, I'm not going to show you guys anything on that side because it's the exact same. So once we get this taken off, I'll just go ahead and go through with you guys what you'll need to buy, what tools you need to buy, and show you where to get them from. And that'll finish up this part 1. And then, you know, it might be a few weeks before I get part 2 pulled up. So bear with me if you absolutely need it. You know, there's other guys out there who will tell you how to do it. But once I get that done, we'll go through those parts. And once I get my parts in and get started on it and get the motor and everything pulled, then I'll start documenting part 2, which is actually repairing it. Hopefully we'll be able to end it off in 2 parts. If not, we'll just do 3. And again, I'm sorry this thing ended up so long of a video. I just wanted to go as in depth as possible with you guys, just so you guys were left with fewer questions than some of the other people who do this. So we'll go ahead and get this off, and then we'll go over our parts. So thanks. So guys, we've got everything taken off of the front of the Defender, both fenders, everything that's connected to the bulkhead, with an exception of, you know, just a few like this insulation and such. Still really need to get the motor out, but I'm not going to show you guys taking the motor out because, I mean, if you're taking it this far apart, I'm sure you know how to do that, and I'm sure you just don't want to watch it because this video is already long enough. But what I did is I got everything off the inside, went ahead and took the floor panel things, wherever you consider them, out, and unveiled all the rust and rot and horrible patch jobs that they did overseas. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to walk you around, show you everything that you need to purchase. I know everybody's is different, but this needs about everything that you can buy. So I'll show you what you need to buy. I'll show you where I recommend buying it from. And then once I get all my parts in, we'll pick up where we're leaving off today. We'll have the motor out, and then we'll actually start getting into cutting all of this out and fixing it. That'll be part 2. Can't guarantee how soon it's going to be, but you know, I'm doing my best I can. As soon as these parts come in, we'll get started on it. So what I started doing is I started taking the grinder, I started cleaning everything up. So what we've came to see, which we knew this, but we need these outer vent panels. You can buy these outer vent panels that go all the way to the center that have this little recess for the vents in it, or you can buy it where it just goes to about right here and down, where you don't have to cut into any of these curvature or anything. You can just buy this skin panel, the corner of it, and then be good to go. What I'm doing is I'm buying the whole length for both sides because I'm doing a Puma conversion with the Puma dashboard, so I won't be able to use my vents. So what I will do is on these new ones, I'll cut it out right in here, this little lip, I'll cut it out or grind it down and run a smooth panel across and be just like the Puma vents. One thing though is if you've got a lot of rust behind here, make sure that these are good. Make sure they're not really pitted and corroded. I know these are pretty pitted up here. They're not terrible, but they're not great. Where I'm doing the Puma conversion, I'm just getting the one without the hinge in it. I've already got it. But sometimes you can, you can fill it and make it smooth and rework it to where it looks like new, but sometimes as cheap as they are, it's easier just to buy another set of them. So coming back to the inside, you can't buy this. We're gonna have to make that. You guys will see us making that. But as far as these pillars, you can buy the pillars. We need the pillars. We need the footwells. We've actually got those right there. And it's a horrible mess in here because I've torn everything off and set it here instead of taking it to the other side where all of my takeoff parts are. So I need to get all that moved, so I apologize for that. But with the footwells, you can buy just the footwell that comes to this edge, or you can buy one that comes up to like right here, which would benefit in this case, but this one came with those and we're not going to buy them if they came with them. We'll just make that panel in these corners that it's needed. But it comes all the way up here. It has this little curve in it. You know, it makes it a lot easier if you want to make less yourself. But yeah, you can see how rusty it is. We kind of uncovered that. I don't know if that patch is supposed to be there on top of the bulkhead outrigger, but it's rotted right in the center. You can see the screwdrivers down inside of it. Like I said, I don't know if it's supposed to be there. I know underneath it, if you feel underneath it, there's a gap between the actual frame itself and this up top. I I don't know if that might have been for a reason or if it was factory or what, but oh well, we'll get it taken out and we'll clean it up. Of course, you can see more rust here. Need the A-pillars, skins, you know, all that jazz. I mean, it's pretty bad. It's very bad. A lot of people would run away from it, but that's what we're here for. We're here to show you that it's possible to fix this and that you don't have to spend all the money in the world to fix it. You just have to spend the time. So let's get into showing you these parts.